Brothers, oh brothers, my days here are done. The Dornishman's taken my life. But what does it matter? For all men must die. And I've tasted the Dornishman's wife. I've tasted the Dornishman's wife. All right, welcome back to the IMNerd podcast. This is your host, Freeway, and I'm here with my co-host, Kenny.
Kenny. That's right.
For episode 6. We're here for episode 6, and this one is going to be about Game of Thrones, one of the biggest shows of all time, probably the biggest show of all time, I would say, in terms of popularity and just what it did to nerd culture, and it kind of became... Not even kind of, it did become mainstream and just permeated everywhere, I feel like.
I think, without looking it up, but I'm pretty sure it is factually the biggest show of all time.
Yeah, I don't know what would be bigger as far as a drama, like a live action drama. I'm sure that it's like the biggest for that, like ever, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Cult-like following. It's actually, so Game of Thrones for me is tied for best show on TV with only one other show, Mad Men, which I find to be like extremely good. But for fantasy genre, like I don't really think anything compares to how good the first couple seasons of Game of Thrones were.
I agree. Also, when you started that sentence and you started with when I heard the sound, I thought you were going to say Game of Thrones is tied only with MASH.
Oh,
I was
God.
like, what the fuck? Because
I'm not that
in my
old.
head. Because when we were talking about like most popular show of all time, MASH back in the day, those old heads fucking loved MASH.
Yeah, my grandmom, I'm pretty sure, used to watch MASH, but that I do not fuck with any of that stuff. But yeah, what's your earliest memory of Game of Thrones? Like, what is your, not necessarily the show itself, but how did you get introduced to anything Game of Thrones? Because I wonder what yours is, because I know what mine is.
Mine, I think is really cool, actually. I had insider information on Game of Thrones, actually.
Okay.
Before Game of Thrones came out, before there was a trailer for it, before there was anything about this show coming out, my close friend Ant, who you know, Ant, Ant was like, hey, there's this show that's going to be coming out in like a year or two called Game of Thrones. Because he works like in the industry. He makes VFX and he works on different shows and movies and commercials. So anyway, he knew about Game of Thrones, and it wasn't like a breach of NDA or anything, because he didn't work on Game of Thrones. He just like knew about it somehow through somebody. But anyway, he told me all about it and told me what the premise of it was. And he was explaining this whole show to me. And he was like, yeah, it's really cool. This, and that. He explained the whole premise of the show to me and got me really pumped up. This was like a year or two before episode 1 even aired.
Wow.
Then time passes, obviously, like you kind of forget. You're not thinking about it every day. And then one day, just like as I'm scrolling the internet, I don't really remember where, I happened to see it. Episode 1 just came out. I was like, oh shit, that's the show Ant was telling me about like 2 years ago. And then so I went and I watched it like right away, and I watched the pilot. That was basically my introduction to Game of Thrones. It was 2 years before, had a big conversation about it with my close friend.
Yeah.
And then 2 years later, just seeing it on the internet, like, oh shit, so that's episode 1.
My introduction to Game of Thrones is actually way different. I did not start watching Game of Thrones until season 2 had already concluded. And the way I got introduced, like my first Game of Thrones memory was seeing fucking memes of Ned Stark standing there with the whole winter is coming thing, but people would use it as Cowboys haters are coming, or like the
Eagles
NBA
are coming,
the NBA playoffs are coming. It would be like stuff like that,
like hater season is coming.
Yeah, it was always stuff like that, like something is coming, and I didn't know who the character was. Like I didn't know what it was referencing. I had no idea. I just saw this guy with this fucking fur thing on his shoulders, big ass sword, and it would be like something is coming. And then there was also the other one where he's kind of like doing this, but it's not from Game of Thrones, but it's Ned Stark's character doing that kind of thing from, I think, because he's from Lord of the Rings too. And so I was like, what the fuck is this meme? Like, I feel left out of whatever's going on. I always like to be in the know of whatever the popular memes are, even back in like 2012 when season 2 was probably airing. But that was like my first Game of Thrones thing, you could call it. And then I randomly started watching the show one day because one of my friends was like, yo, you got to start watching Game of Thrones. It's just the craziest thing. Just watch it. And so I started from episode 1. And I have this very strong opinion that if you start episode 1 of Game of Thrones and actually pay attention and watch it all the way through, I cannot imagine you not wanting to see the next thing that happens, because, you know, episode 1 has like so much setup, and you get Daenerys being sold to the Dothraki. You get the last Hand of the King being murdered. You get some incest, which is just wild. Some other conversations that don't mean anything. Weird. It is. There's a lot that goes on. But episode 1 is so good to me. And then you get the final scene, which is where, you know, the incest between Jaime and Cersei, and he pushes Bran out the window. The things we do for love. That seeing the I don't give a fuck, he saw us from Cersei, and then like him blatantly pushing this little ass kid out the window.
He's like, oh, he's 8 years old. That's fine. He's dead.
Yeah.
Like,
I was like, wow, the show is dark as hell. I mean, the show is so dark from episode 1. Some of the things that are said in it, like, I don't even want to repeat, because episode 1 is so dark. When Daenerys is being sold, her brother's like looking at her. I will let all 40,000 of his horses and his army. Like, I was just like, oh my God, this is episode 1. I don't know how people like watch it and just, I don't know. It's such a good show to me. So
I'm impressed that, I mean, I guess it goes to show how good the show is, because I agree with everything you just said, but also one of the things that drew me in was the fact that right at episode 1, it felt like the story had already started. It wasn't like, this is the story. It felt like you just dropped in, and there was already a whole season before it.
And that's what's so cool about
characters and all this shit going on. And like, this Hand of the King guy just died, and
we don't know what that even means.
You don't even fully grasp that till you rewatch episode 1.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of cool that Hand of the King doesn't mean anything to you until you understand much later on what it even means to be the Hand of the King. So when you finally understand that and you go back and watch it, because I think Game of Thrones arguably gets better every single time you watch it. It just constantly, it just ages well. Every time a new season will come out, I think you and I both did this ritual, but we would watch every episode before the new season aired. By season 6, we're watching 5 seasons before episode 1 of season 6 airs, just so that we like recap everything. And you start to notice all of these things that you like might have missed, mistakes that characters made that got them in trouble or like literally killed. Because I mean, this is Sex, Murder, and Dragons, the TV show. Like it's very just that. A lot of, like, it's very popular because of, you know, the murders that happen, the deaths and stuff that people didn't see coming. I heard about the Red Wedding before I even watched Game of Thrones, but thankfully it wasn't communicated to me what the Red Wedding meant.
Thank God.
It was just, the Red Wedding is crazy. You know, it's insane. But I didn't really understand what happened because people had read the books. So I started when season 2 had ended. So I watched 2 seasons straight in probably one weekend, more than likely, knowing myself. And people were like, next season's going to be ridiculous because of the Red Wedding. And I was like, I don't know what that means, but don't tell me. I don't want to be spoiled. But
I know for sure you did it in a weekend, because I don't remember what season it was. Maybe it was season 6, but I was at your house the weekend before season 6 started.
Yeah.
And we pretty much watched all 5 seasons in like 3 or 4 days.
Yeah. Like we just spread through it so quickly. And it just, I don't know. I love the actors. I've grown so attached to them. Like there's kind of like, now that the show is over, there's this void on Sunday nights that's just been left there for the last couple of years of Game of Thrones not being on TV. I mean, those characters are portrayed so well. They're cast so perfectly. Like I see them because I've also read the novels, and I see those people, those actors when I'm reading it now. I don't know. It's just such a good show.
Hey, real quick side note. This has nothing to do with Game of Thrones. I just happened to notice. If you're listening, you won't know what I'm talking about. But Frazier, your haircut looks really nice.
Oh, thank you. I
just noticed it. You did it yourself.
Yeah, you know me.
It looks really nice.
It's been like 8 years.
My hair, I look like a fucking. I look like I'm from straight out the 80s right now. I'm growing it out. I'm straight out the 80s, baby. My hair is all over the place.
Yep.
But anyway.
So we can start with like the beginning, right? So season 1, and we're not going to like recap the whole thing or anything like that, but I just want to talk about like the idea of the main character at the time, Ned Stark, and like his journey through season 1, and then obviously his murder, right? Like he ends up pretty much getting murdered, which fucking completely shocked me. Like I thought he was the main character, and I was still under the impression that like main characters don't die. Very few genres do that,
and it's my opinion that everybody thought he was the main character. The show was written for everybody to feel like Ned was the main character. Something that I hate post season 1. You know how the cool kids get on the internet.
Yeah.
People were like, Ned was never the main character.
Yeah.
What are you talking? Man, get the fuck out of here.
Ned was clearly the main character of season 1. He was the guy that the king literally came to see in the first, pretty much like the first sequence after the White Walkers attack, because that's like the actual opening of the show. When the king finally comes, when Robert Baratheon shows up to Winterfell, he comes to see Ned. Ned is clearly being followed. There's more scenes of Ned pretty much throughout season 1 than I feel like any other character. If you were to just,
I think so.
I think if somebody were to look up like how many scenes was Ned in season 1, it's probably more than any other character in the entire.
Even if somehow it was like tied with Daenerys or something, or even if somehow Daenerys had more, let's say. Yeah. I just feel like Ned's scenes, the way they were constructed and shot and the dialogue, it felt like the main character. Like he felt like the main character of the show. Yeah, he just had the most development, I would say, in season 1 as far as, you know, him not wanting to be the hand of the king. He rejected it immediately, but then obviously he told his wife, I have to do it. You know, I really don't have a choice. If Robert wants me as the hand, I actually just have to do it. He's the king, blah, blah, blah. You know, they fought a war together. His best friend. Yeah, his best friend. It's so you get like this whole journey of Ned Stark, and then he brings his whole family down there, and things just go so south when they get to the south.
Yeah, literally things go south when they get to the fucking south. And seeing him ultimately, Robert gets killed by Cersei. He finds out about the incestuous kids, like the children are made from incest. He threatens Cersei, and then it gets to a point where she blatantly tells him, you either win or you die. There is no middle ground, like when you play the Game of Thrones. So like that iconic line from season 1, she told him straight up, like, yo, you are threatening me. You're telling me that you're going to tell my husband when he gets, I should leave. And when he gets back, you're going to tell him and all this stuff. And she's like, you either win or you die. And he, the Starks in general are very stubborn characters, which we're going to talk about in a little bit, but he doesn't heed her warning. And Ned confronts her, doesn't heed her warning, and essentially the show really starts, I feel like, with him being thrown in jail and a war starts, right? Literally, his son, Robb Stark, is like, okay, that's not cool, obviously, and he rallies up the North and is like, I'm going to go to war with the Lannisters. This is a declaration of war, essentially. And there's a lot of other scenes with Sansa's development and Arya and the whole like Joffrey and the direwolf being killed because of the lie. Lady gets pretty much killed because Sansa lied for Joffrey because she was infatuated with him, and that just does not age well. You just have so many dynamics of the Starks being like stubborn people from the gate. Like that's what they're known for, is they're very, very stubborn. And Ned, his stubbornness kind of got him killed because he had multiple opportunities to not have things turn so south. One of the biggest is like when Littlefinger comes to him and says, I have 20,000 gold cloaks backing me. Like whoever is king is whoever pays the army, right? Like, and he pays the army. So he told Ned, like, look, we can take the throne if you just seize power. It's right there. Like, I'll help you take it. And who knows what Littlefinger's true intention was. I mean, I'm sure it has something to do with Catelyn Stark. He was going to back Ned, and then Ned was like, no, we're not going to do that. We're not going to seize everything aggressively. Robert gave me his last dying wishes or whatever kind of speech, and that result in Littlefinger then going, okay, I'm going to now give the army to Cersei and Joffrey. And he gets betrayed in that courtroom when he comes and he shows that piece of paper that's like, this is directly from Robert Baratheon. This is the king's words. It has the king's seal on it.
Nobody gave a fuck.
Literally don't give a shit. They rip that up. And it's like, we have a new king now. Here's your king right here, Joffrey. And that just, Joffrey ends up killing Ned. Even after Ned asked for forgiveness and says he was wrong for saying that Joffrey wasn't the real king and all that stuff, he still ends up killing him. And obviously that, again, like that starts the
war. It's important to note, first of all, Joffrey, I think one of the most well-written characters on television. And what I mean is that I don't know of any character who was so quickly and so consistently hated by everyone.
Yes.
And like, I think they did a great job writing him.
They really did. I hated him
because of that.
I feel like I would hate his actor if I saw him in real life. That's how bad.
From what I've heard, he actually has gotten, it made his life, that role made his life harder.
That happens with a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't genuinely be upset, but I will say that character, Joffrey Baratheon, he got a real emotion out of me watching him on screen. I hated that fucking kid. And all four,
he was such a little prick. Like
he was so fucking good at it. I guess we should talk about our favorite and least favorite character or characters. So, I mean, least favorite, it sounds like both of us hate Joffrey, but I wouldn't say that he's
not my least favorite character.
He's not my least favorite either.
My relationship with Joffrey is that I hate him, but
I think he's a necessary part for the show.
Because
and
of that, I actually do like if I'm speaking objectively or whatever, I really like his character.
Yes,
because
same.
Of how
I feel the
much
same
I
way.
hate him.
I feel the same exact way. So least favorite though, who's your least favorite character? I wonder if we have the same one.
My least favorite character, I swear to God, Catelyn's sister. I don't even remember her name.
I know who you're talking about.
I fucking hate her.
Catelyn Stark's sister, Lysa Arryn.
Lysa Arryn.
Yes.
Lysa Arryn, she is the wife of
the old hand.
Of the old hand of the king that we don't like Arryn. And at the time you have no
you don't know who he is or
that
anything.
fucking flies by you. Like that just flies.
You have no
by
idea. That has no weight to it.
But anyway, Lysa Arryn and her stupid little fucking son that sits there and he's like 14 and is still sucking on her kitty.
Yeah.
I hate they come as a bundle deal.
They do. He's a little man child.
Fucking characters so much. Yeah.
Okay, so it's Lysa for you. Okay.
Lysa like every time I saw her, like I just don't like her at all. Like I fucking hate that character.
She's not meant to be a likable character. They're not meant to be likable, I would say. Like the show that George R. R. Martin clearly wrote them to be not likable from the first time you ever see them, right? They're just not likable characters. But for me, my least favorite character, especially after seeing the entire show from start to finish, is Sansa Stark. I just do not like that character at all. She was a child in season 1, right? Like a legit, very, very young girl. So when she gets into the whole thing with Arya and the direwolf and the butcher's boy, they have that little spat where Joffrey pulls out a real fucking sword and starts swinging it on the butcher's boy and tell him like, "You're gonna fight me," and the butcher's boy looking at him like, "What the hell? Like, I don't even have a real sword." Joffrey's
also,
basically
you're the fucking prince. Like, I'm not raising my hand to you.
Yeah, like there was so much wrong with that dynamic, and Joffrey was just basically being a fucking bully, just a terrible human being. So that scene where all the children are brought into like the little, I guess, court, and Ned comes in barging in, like, what's going on here? Like, why are my kids being like questioned or whatever? Like Robert Baratheon and Cersei are really pissed. I guess Robert's are kind of like, kids are kids. Like he has the most human,
for real.
He has the most human response to me. Like he's really just like, it's not that serious. Like kids are kids. But then Cersei really presses the issue in that room, and she's like, what are you gonna do about the person that like attacked your son, that mauled your son or whatever? Basically like implying that Joffrey got jumped. He just told this lie, and Sansa backed it. Like she just straight up did not tell. I guess what she didn't do, she didn't admit what really happened was that Joffrey like really started the whole thing. Like Joffrey
not only did she lie and side with Joffrey, she fucking rolled on her family. Like she turned on at the end of the day, like Arya's her blood. You know what I mean? Like
yes, and I know that those two don't get along really in the beginning, but like at the end of the day, like that is still your family, and you literally traded on your sister for some fucking Joffrey's not even. I don't know. He's not even. I don't know.
Some boy that she thought was cute. Like
I just don't. I don't see it.
I don't know if maybe I just don't remember it correctly, but I feel like that was, other than the fact everybody knows he's the prince, that was the first time she ever even saw him.
Yeah, I think it was.
Like, they didn't have a previous.
Yeah. Because like I think that Robert Baratheon hadn't come to the north
since he became king.
Yes, like I think that he became king like years ago. Like over a decade ago, clearly, because Ned has children that are literally in their teens. It's been decades since they've seen each other, and so she's never even seen Joffrey, but she immediately falls in love with him. She really falls in love with the idea of Joffrey, though, I guess, right?
That's true.
Like we can be fair and say,
I'm gonna be a princess, and they'll do my hair up in the high tower.
Yes, she was always the girl.
She falls in love with that lifestyle.
She was always the girl that like wanted to be that role, like and Arya was like, I don't want to be that. She wasn't good at knitting or like doing any kind of embroidery work, and then like you see Sansa's work and it's like insane, right? Like she's amazing at all of the little girly things and the princessy things.
Yeah, and like they show Arya right from the gate. She hits a bullseye with like a bow. Bran's like messing up with the bow and arrow, and she hits it. So
Sansa like starts off trading on her sister, her blood. So that's like the strike one for me, and then it just kind of like continues throughout with things that I just don't like about her. And I get it, like she is a kid. I am not holding that part against her. It's just that at the end of the day, she also wrote a letter, like she was like forced and intimidated into writing a letter saying to Robb, like, surrender and come to the South and basically plead your case that Joffrey's the king, and you're gonna end this rebellion or whatever. And I don't know. I just hated everything about her in season 1, and then it just doesn't get any better. She just does a lot of things throughout the show that really, really trigger me. And I don't know. I felt bad for her with the whole Ramsay situation, like in season 5. Like I don't I don't care for that whole part of her story. Like I think that part was unnecessary because it doesn't happen to her in the books. But as far as everything else, like even the way it ends, like Sansa at the end, when Jon is like, yo, I have this secret, don't tell anyone. And she immediately goes and tells like everyone. She's like, oh yeah, like he's actually Targaryen, he's the rightful heir to the throne. Like that, I really just
Yeah, because they had this whole something that was weird about the last season is that they really wanted to have this weird beef between like Daenerys and the Stark girls.
Yes, that was the thing. They were,
And it just didn't really feel supernatural. Like it didn't
was
feel
rushed, right? So,
yeah.
it definitely wasn't natural. It was like immediate. It was like we're supposed to bow to her because she's this ice queen from some other foreign land. The North doesn't do that type of thing. The North is its own region that doesn't have anyone ruling over, even though clearly they've been ruled over by. They were part of the Seven Kingdoms. So like Sansa, this is not fucking some new thing. Like whoever rules in the South essentially rules Winterfell too, and that's how it's always been. Like, so she actually, I don't know, she immediately just doesn't like Daenerys, and it's like it kind of gives me the whole like women don't like women vibes thing. Like that's kind of what they were going.
I was going to bring that up, yeah. And what's weird about that is Game of Thrones throughout the entire series, I think has very well written female characters.
Yes.
Like there are amazing, like Cersei, for example, I think is one of the greatest like female characters we've had on television.
Yes.
In a very long time. I think Marjorie. I think Marjorie's really done. Her mom, Queen Olenna.
Oh my God, I love Olenna.
She is incredible. Like incredible.
She is so good.
So there's so many
she's so good.
like I don't think somebody could levy an argument against Game of Thrones saying like they don't have well-written female. Like I think they have great female characters.
And the women characters are also strong too. Like
yes.
Like even Daenerys from season 1 is like a very strong character because she starts off being sold and she like turns the situation around and she becomes like this, like the Khaleesi. She becomes the queen of these people. And they
with each season she gets more subtitles. It's like Daenerys, Queen of the Dragons, Breaker of Chains,
Mother of
like,
Dragons.
It's like what the fuck?
Yeah, she gets badass. And like pretty much like Arya, she becomes badass too, right? Like,
yes.
Brienne of Tarth. So there's
Brienne of Tarth is amazing.
There's a ton of strong women characters. There was never in Game of Thrones like this whole women just kind of hate women thing. That was
it never was
pushed.
like, oh, women are catty because they're women. Like it felt like that last 2 seasons were like, well, now women are catty for no reason.
It just got like really bad.
It felt really stupid.
Yeah, it was very
like
forced.
That wasn't an honest representation of women or your characters that you wrote.
Yeah, I wasn't a fan. And so Sansa, like at the end of Game of Thrones, where she pretty much causes so much shit to go wrong with her telling like, all right, well, her telling other people like, yo, he's actually a Targaryen, even though he said like, do not bring this up to anyone. I don't want to be the king of the throne, or I don't want that shit. Like that's just between us. But she tells, and then at She's the very end,
I want my brother to be king so I can be queen and blah 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 blah.
And then at the very end, when they're having like, how should we proceed going forward? Like in the future, like we're gonna have, the Seven Kingdoms is gonna be led by Bran. And that's how, and it's going to be like a new system basically. Well, she's like, oh well, the North is not going to be part of that system. It's just going to be 6 kingdoms plus the North. And I'm like, who the fuck gave you the
who ability? Are you?
Yeah, like she just made this decision like, oh yeah, the North doesn't abide by the 6, I guess the 6 kingdoms now rule. Like Sansa, you do not have that type of power. You just don't.
The ending of Game of Thrones, it's a great example as to why I know everybody makes fun of anime and filler and padding.
Yeah.
But there's a good reason why we have filler, and that's so that we don't get ahead of the writer. Because once you start doing shit without the original writer, we go fucking way left.
Yes.
Right? Sometimes we need a little filler. Let's pad it out. Let's let the writer.
Yep.
That said, I mean, it's been so many years and we still don't have the next book. So I guess you couldn't really wait. But.
Yeah, they couldn't wait. So I do want to speak to what you just said too. The whole like getting the source material and catching up to it, and then eventually having to make a decision. Do we just start making our own story to kind of proceed? Because this happened with Full Metal Alchemist from what I understand as well, right?
Yes,
so can you talk about that? And I think I watched Full Metal Alchemist for the first time like 5 years ago. So I don't really remember like what was going on with people who actually were reading the manga and then watching the actual anime, which deviated from the manga at some point, right?
Yes. So when the anime was made, to be fair, the anime deviated from the manga from Jump a little bit. Okay. Not aggressively, but they changed a couple things, and in some ways, I think for the better, especially early on. with the pacing. Like the original anime is paced a lot slower, but it does a good job of building up the mood of the series. Whereas I think while they were writing it, they knew the manga was only this far and it was still going, and they knew they were trying to give the manga leeway. Anyway, the anime kept going. They caught up to the manga, and they went in a different direction. And I think that it's been a while since I read interviews or whatever, but I believe that they knew from the gate that the original author, she wasn't going to be finished by the time they caught up. I think from the gate, they knew they were going to branch off into a different story. This was going
to happen from the very beginning.
Yeah. So they sort of planned it. And
I don't know if the same is true for Game of Thrones. Like, I feel like they expected that George R. R. Martin would have because he would have 6 or 7 years to finish the books. The first season is I think 2011 or something. And I think Game of Thrones. I think Game of Thrones airs in 2010 or 2011, and you have at least 5 seasons of content in the books. You have 5 books, and you have 5 seasons of content essentially, which is 5 years, the way Game of Thrones does seasons. So he has a good 5-year time period to finish the story. So maybe they just expected he's gonna finish it by the time.
Yeah, I think he thought he was going to finish it too.
Yeah, maybe he did. But with Fullmetal Alchemist, they knew from the gate.
Okay, from FMA, I believe they knew from the gate, and so they started setting the seeds early. And a lot of people argue don't watch FMA, watch Brotherhood, blah blah blah. The original FMA, I think, is still really good in its own right, has its own merit. And overall, the mood of the show is darker, and I think it's very much worth. If you've never watched FMA, Fullmetal Alchemist, I do think watch the original one. Just go through the original one all the way through, and then if you want, take a 2-week break. And then watch Brotherhood.
Yeah.
Because Brotherhood will start off with the same content as FMA, but it'll be a lot faster, it'll be more abridged, and it'll kind of run through it. And then very quickly you'll start to see them diverge. And you're like, oh shit. And then you basically just get a whole different story with the same characters that you already love.
Right.
So it's cool because the original FMA, I think, is still very much loved. Whereas Game of Thrones at the moment, those last couple, especially the last season.
Yeah, the last season.
In my opinion, season 6, 7, and 8 are all they have good moments in them, but overall they're just
that's where it starts to go downhill, right? It starts to nosedive a bit. But yeah, I do think that is everyone talks about Game of Thrones and how it ended. We all agree it ended terrible. Game of Thrones ending is one of the worst nosedives in all of television history and all of fantasy history. It's really, really bad. I mean, it's so fucking awful. Daenerys just descends into this crazy character in no time. It takes her she goes from being someone who adamantly is against killing children to killing children. Mm-hmm. Every season when kids are being killed, or when those kids were all murdered and their bodies were hanging on crosses as they led the way to Marine or whatever, she had them all taken down and buried by her people. She was take every single one of these down and bury them properly.
She never wanted to harm the people she never wanted to harm the innocents, the people that were the product of their masters. She went through every precaution every season. She freed a people.
Yes,
every
that was
season,
her thing. Don't get me wrong.
She freed a people.
She when she was with the Dothraki, they were going around raping and pillaging, and she pulled that one witch lady out and was I'm saving you or whatever. That was the beginning of her having this heart, even though she couldn't really do much about the Dothraki. That's what they do, and that's what Khal Drogo kind of told her this is how we live, because she didn't like that from the gate. Just watching them do that, but she tried to kind of stop it, but then she realized I really just can't though, right? This is their actual way of life. But then when she becomes the I guess the queen of her own, she becomes just, I'm the Khaleesi now, and Khal Drogo's gone. I lead these people. Under her watch, there was no more of this we're just going around raping and pillaging for no reason at all, other than the fact that this is what we do. She just wasn't really about that life.
Not at all.
Out of nowhere, at the end, she's just this completely different person. I won't say that she became power hungry at the end, because she always was this is what I want. I want to rule.
Yes.
That was very clear that she was the Iron Throne is mine. I'm going to get an army. I'm going to go back and get my home back. So that was never up for debate. It's just how quickly that turned into terrorism. It just became terrorism in one episode.
You could argue, people will argue, oh, you could see it, her descent in the man, blah, blah, blah. But
right.
Yes, there was seeds of it there. However, her character, and then also I didn't if you watched, I watched for every episode. I watched the after credits, things with the directors talk and stuff.
Same.
And they made that argument. They were well, the Mad King went crazy, and everybody was maybe she'll go crazy.
Right.
But it just felt Yeah, but you just literally decided to flip the switch and make like
right.
there was seas there, but she always overcame that. And
yes. And my other thing,
and
she
then
looked
just
at
like,
her council.
now we need her to fucking go crazy.
Yeah, she always had like, signs, right, of where she could go south, like where the shit can go south with her. She wanted to burn down her enemies, like when they attacked her when she like was captured for a while. She came back when Tyrion was in control, a Marine. She came back and like the city was under attack, and she was like, I'm going to take my dragons and I'm going to fucking start killing everybody. And he was like, you can't do that. You will be no different than your father, than like our dads who are terrible people. They left the world in a terrible place. You'll be no different if you do that. And she listened. She did not do that. She instead burned their ships, like, and then like didn't start killing any, like, so she listened to everyone. And it's fair that when you're angry, like obviously you're angry and you have power, you're going to want to exercise it. We're not saying that she should have never become the crazy person that she became in the end. It's just that it was too fast.
Yeah, the last season was shorter than all the other seasons, right? It was 8 episodes or 6.
I think it was 6. I think it's 6 episodes. It's really
I think you're right. I think it was 6.
Yeah.
Every season had 10 episodes. Now, granted, somebody will argue, well, the episodes were longer, but I don't know. Not all of them.
Not really though. Like they were a little, like the last 2 were like pretty long, but like the other seasons had some long episodes too. Some of the episodes, like Battle of the Bastards, I think is like longer than like regular episodes. Like so there were long episodes before season 7 and 8 or whatever the last 2 seasons are.
The other thing is like the directors, they knew season 8 happened. HBO wasn't cutting their funding. They weren't like, you guys have to stop. Game of Thrones did not get canceled.
They fucking increased the funding at the end.
They could have had
it's costing over 10 million.
3 more seasons. Yeah, yes. Like they could have kept going. They could have kept writing it, but they like just wanted. What really hurts me, and it's like frustrating, is that it was such a good show with such good buildup for a show with such good buildup and such a good way of just letting things ride out and giving you a payoff. They really just at the end were like, all right, I want to fucking move on. Like it just felt like they clapped their hands like, I just want to move on.
Yeah,
and they let it end.
I heard that D&D, the two show writers, I heard that they like, they got the real ending from George R.R. Martin. And so they said that it's still going to be, supposedly it's going to be what George R.R. Martin intended to happen at the end, but we're just going to arrive there differently. Like we're going to arrive there on our own, in our own way. But I don't think it was ever going, like George R.R. Martin clearly doesn't do things that quickly. Like he's a very slow build up kind of writer, and things like there's signs of everything and it happens over time. It's never like some quick, out of nowhere situation with
something that makes me sad for George R.R. Is that I think the part that he told them was like the brand becoming king. Like Brand's going to become king and like it'll become a democracy or whatever.
I feel like it might be that, but I think also the Daenerys becoming crazy. I think that is actually a part of the real.
Yeah.
I think it will just happen slower. Agree. Like I don't think that she was ever supposed to actually sit on the Iron Throne. I don't think that was like, because in the show it doesn't happen. She gets to the throne. She never sits down though. I think that like I think it was always intended. She obsessed over it. That was like the entire like for the entire show. She obsessed over the Iron Throne once she like realized what it was. She obsessed over it every season. I think that it was always the thing where she was never supposed to have it, and the reason was because she would like become the Mad Queen essentially. So I like they could know, okay, maybe Bran becomes the king at the end, and that Daenerys never sits on Iron Throne because she falls into madness, and then you can say, okay, how do you write to that point?
Yep,
they clearly got to.
And that's what makes me sad is because like so many people made fun, like so many people were pissed that Bran became the king and all this other stuff. And what makes me sad is that when I look at that last scene, I know you make fun of it all the time when you say like, "Why do you think I came all this way?"
Oh, yeah.
Like you make fun of that all the time, right?
Why do you think I came this?
I think if we got like, what sucks is that if the show didn't exist and we all just read the books and like let's say the books came out, I think George R.R. writes amazingly, and I think like when we got to that point and that line got written on a piece of page, like. You would have read that and be like, man, because something's going to happen in the book. And basically what I fear is that because of the show, like spoiled it. Now, if the books ever do come out, that moment is already tainted. Yes. I'm hoping that he overcomes it with just like his writing. But
so I actually heard literally yesterday or today, and I don't know if this is true. I didn't fact check it, and you guys can let us know, right into IMNerdpodcast@gmail.com. But like, let us know if you heard the same thing or like what that apparently George R.R. Martin is changing the ending of the books. He had an ending in mind, and he's actually changing it from what happened in the show. Like, it's not gonna. Maybe Daenerys doesn't actually fall into madness at all in his ending now. Like, even though that may be what he told D&D, like, this is the ending, and then he might just say, like, I'm reneging on that, and I'm not doing that ending. Like, I actually thought about it more. I've had fucking 10 years to think about it, and it's a no for me. Like, I'm just changing it, and I'm fine with that. Like, I'm fine for them completely. If he wants to, so I was talking to my friend about this today. I said, if he redoes the ending, I would hope that they would actually reshoot those last seasons. Like, they would actually like, they could either bring back all the actors from the original series, like, years and years are going to probably have passed by then, and people have gotten older. But with technology, you can make people look like whatever you want them to look like.
You really can.
Like, I've seen that, that Gemini Man movie with Will Smith where he looks like his 20-year-old self. I don't know how the fuck they did that, but the CG or whatever they did, the makeup, he looks like Will Smith is like fully 50, and he looks like he's 20 in that movie at a point. And it's just kind of like, holy shit, like, that's actually insane. So they can make people, I know it's expensive, but they can, HBO spares no expense when it comes to.
They do that with Robert Downey Jr. in some of the Marvel movies when they show him younger.
Yes.
Like, really younger.
It's creepy to me when they do that.
Yeah.
He looks so, like, because it looks like young Robert Downey Jr. And I'm like, how is that a thing?
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
it's really, like, his face is super smooth and like baby looking. I don't know. I know exactly what you're talking about, because there's a scene, I think, in Winter Soldier where he's showing off some technology and he's like young in the flashback, and I was like, he looks
it's either Winter Soldier or Civil War.
Yeah, but he looks extremely young. So they can use technology to, like, make the characters look how they need them to look, and if not, they can just completely recast the people and just tell us who they are as the show is going on. Like, oh, this is Cersei now, or this is this is Daenerys now, and we'll be fine with that. I don't think anyone will be mad if the Game of Thrones like reshot the last like 2 or 3 seasons completely, because the last thing that happened in the book is like Jon Snow was murdered by the Night's Watch.
I would even be okay with, as much as I love the show, this is something I've wanted for a long time, and I honestly can't believe it hasn't happened, because I just think it's so much money in the bank. If you just got the actors for the show and have them voice act full audiobooks for all the books.
Oh yeah, I would be down for that.
Like, that would be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, I personally love listening to podcasts, which is kind of how, like, we started this, right? We talk a lot and we listen to podcasts ourselves. I would not mind listening to a Game of Thrones audiobook where the actors, whoever plays Arya, whoever plays Sansa, whoever plays Jon, and they're actually the voice. Like, that would be
so good.
That would be amazing. That would be absolutely amazing. And I will listen to it. And I think tons of people would also do the same thing.
I do. I think, dude, even more. And I think some people think I'm crazy, but I truly think this would have so many watches on HBO. I think you could do that. Have the audiobooks, audio script, because the actor's like, man, I don't want to get in set and makeup and blah. But you know what? You don't even have to do that. We're just going to get like art, and we'll have like art for each scene. And then it's just they're literally voice acting the book, and they have art going across
like something like
screen, like still images. You could put that on HBO on TV, and I guarantee people will watch it.
There's a million ways they can correct what ended up happening. And so the rumor with D&D was that they got a Star Wars contract or something. They were supposed to work on something with Star Wars with Disney, and so they were like, well, we got to wrap up Game of Thrones now. And
that is what I heard.
That's what I heard too. Don't know if that's 100% fact, but like, I did hear that they were supposed to do something with Disney. That never actually came to fruition, I don't think. I think that I think that actually didn't come to fruition, but that was like the thing that was supposed to happen that kind of caused them to say, okay, we can no longer do this project anymore. And they tried to say like, oh, it was always supposed to be 8 seasons or something like that, but we're not trying to hear that. That franchise is so big and so well done that it could have gone on forever. Like Game of Thrones, if they wanted to cash cow it, I feel like a lot of manga ends up getting done. Some like Bleach, for example, I feel like should have ended after Aizen. I don't think Bleach should have continued. Like, it should have been like a wrap it up, but it didn't need to keep going. And so I feel like Game of Thrones could have gone longer, and it at some point, like, okay, we can get to an ending, but it doesn't need to be rushed. I think the biggest problem with Game of Thrones ending is that it was rushed.
I think it's episode 3 or episode 2
of what season?
Season 8.
Okay, the last season.
The long night episode.
Yeah. 3 or something.
Was so like that episode simultaneously is amazing and sucks.
Yep.
Like that episode has things that like,
so much leads up to it, right?
Yeah. Like so much leads up to it. There's so many things in the episode that are just super dope. Yep. There's great music, a great imagery in a lot of instances. You get the dragons, like the imagery when the Dothraki, all their swords on fire and
Oh my
riding the
God.
battle.
Oh my
And the
God.
light from the swords just goes out.
Oh my
is
God.
Beautiful.
So good.
You want to know what makes it not beautiful? 2 episodes later, when that episode, they're like, the Dothraki are extinct. And then 2 episodes later, when Daenerys goes to the south, there's a fucking horde of Dothraki going through the streets. Like, I thought they were gone.
Yo, she had her army assisting Winterfell with the Night King situation. She sent in it had to be like 90% of her army got slaughtered immediately. And then in the last episode, when you see all the Dothraki, they're kind of like the Dothraki and the Unsullied, they're kind of like doing this with their poles or whatever. And then the Dothraki are like, they're like waving their hands in the air with like their six or whatever those things are called, the sickle looking weapons that they use. They're like waving them in the air and riding around going crazy. I'm like, how the fuck are there still that many Dothraki? Like, there's no way.
So fucking
like
stupid.
They just decided to like multiply, I guess, her, like don't show all the Dothraki pretty much being slaughtered and then show us like a million Dothraki like 2 episodes.
Also,
it's just
once again, when you get to the end of the Long Night episode, if you watch the director's commentary, the fucking writer of the show says like, that scene is so beautiful, right? Blah, 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 blah. You're literally watching the extinction of the Dothraki. Like the writer of the show at the end of the episode says like how beautiful the scene is and that it's the extinction of the Dothraki.
Yeah.
And then fucking 2 episodes later, you see all of them. Like, where'd they come from?
Yeah, no, that shit was bad. So you get a lot of just random shit happening. The Long Night also had the issue of the Night King was supposed to be this epic villain, and they built him up a lot throughout the show. Hard Home, the episode where you first see him resurrect people. So Jon goes to get the wildlings because he doesn't want all these wildlings to become members of the army. And when he goes there, the Night King actually shows up, kills a bunch of people, and some of them escape. They escape to the Night's Watch. And you're like, holy shit, this guy can like resurrect people. And it's really scary. That concept is scary. And then you see him as like a real threat at that point. Like you see the Night King is like this incredible threat now that's on the table. So it's not just Joffrey, Cersei thing anymore. Like, well, you know, it's now, it's gotten supernatural with it. And it's really scary. He's this really big villain. And you think like it's going to be epic as hell. And then it kind of just happens in one episode. I just feel like that's a little unfair that he attacked Winterfell, and in one episode he's dealt with, and then they just kind of continue on with the story immediately to go and it just like it's like y'all, you literally just killed one of the biggest threats in the show literally an episode ago, and now we're marching to the south to like attack Cersei and take the Iron Throne. I'm just kind of like,
the show opens. The show, you said it at the start. The first scene of the show is White Walkers.
Yes,
the White Walkers open the show, and they like kill like some bodies, and body parts are aligned in some weird
something that you don't understand. We're still doesn't understand shit.
The entire show was built up for these what like there was a lot of shit. Mm-hmm. Winter is coming is the mantra of the show.
Yeah.
When you have the Long Night episode, which in so many ways was shot really well, and there's a lot of cool things in it, like the one scene where like all of the sound effects drown out and it's just the music, the Night King's theme, and you see like Tyrion and Sansa behind like the crypt or whatever. Like that scene is amazing.
Yes.
Right. But when we get to the writing of the show, it was the episode was all, like the Long Night should have been a fucking season. Yeah. Like a season.
Yes, I agree with that.
Should have been the Long Night.
I agree with that. I think that war should have lasted at least like 4 episodes. Like it should have been very, very, very
should have been a long fucking like the Long Night shouldn't have been one night. It should have been like a period of time.
Yes. There should have been more going on with that for sure. And if not necessarily like the fighting, the recovery from it at least should take a while, right? Because there's no way, like you just lost so many humans have died fighting against the Night King. Like so many people got killed in that fight. So like them immediately marching south in the next episode is wild.
It's ridiculous.
Like it's wild.
And like you said, it doesn't have to be all action fighting. I'm not saying it should be 4 episodes of fighting.
We're not saying that we want them to direct 4 hours of fighting.
There's more to war. Like, okay, if you go all the way back to season 2, Robb versus Tywin Lannister, or not Tywin. Yeah, Tywin. I was about to say Tytos, but Tytos is Tywin's dad, who you never see. Anyway, well, because he's dead. Robb versus Tywin was a war. That whole season was about that war.
Yeah.
But like not every scene was action and fighting, right? Like you can have 4 episodes of war.
Yeah, the war was actually won off the field.
Yeah, and like you can sit in all these moments, like you can sit in these deep character moments and like people being scared and like there being a shortage of food and these fucking zombies running through shit.
Yeah.
Like there's so much they could have did. Like the long night should have fucking broke our hearts for 4 episodes. Like it should have felt dark.
Yeah.
But instead
it
it's
just
like
was like one blur,
one long episode, and then like the villain, the big bad villain, the fucking king of the show dies to like one stab to the gut. It's
yeah.
like, okay.
And granted, so I've heard this argument about, well, you know, at the end of the day, Game of Thrones is really about the characters, not some guy that doesn't speak at all, has no dialogue whatsoever. Like he was never the real villain. It's always been about the people. I get that. I agree with that. I agree that it's always been about the people going back and forth and not necessarily like this supernatural. However, clearly the Night King is a significant part of a story of ice and fire. Like,
Yeah.
clearly the Night King is supposed to be a little bit more significant than one night that just kind of like he gets extinguished by Arya and that's just it. Like there was just no real after it. Like the gravity of it just wasn't really big after. Like it just kind of happened. It was just like, oh yeah, that's it.
I saw a really good like post or something on the internet. I think it might have been somebody on my Facebook, or maybe it was like a random thing on Twitter. I don't know, but it summed it up so well. It was like, how do you expect me to care about who's president when we just killed the devil? Like,
yes.
Like you go from fighting like this super mega supernatural threat to like, okay, well now let's go fight over who's the queen.
Because like realistically, like Cersei and them, they don't stand a chance against dragons. Like we already know that.
No.
We saw that in the same, like we saw that in season 7. Like human technology at that time just didn't, even with the fucking scorpion thing, right? Like when she decided to attack, like it just didn't matter. It just did not matter at all. King's Landing got leveled by one dragon. It only took one, and it leveled King's Landing. So clearly, like dragons just annihilate everything. You don't really need the whole Cersei is a big deal anymore. And they kind of just did that's the other thing. Like they kind of did away with like Cersei without real punishment, which I thought was weird. Like she doesn't even get actually punished.
Not a happy ending, but kind of a happy ending.
I say it all the time. Yeah, like that is kind of weird to me. That's such a big, and I will say like Cersei is considered like a villain throughout the entire show. Like she's a villain, such a big villain, just kind of getting off scot-free in a way. Like she got to die with Jaime, and she didn't get killed in any kind of horrible way either. She just got crushed by debris falling. Like she didn't get eaten by the dragon or anything.
I love how her and Jaime get fucking a whole building falls on them, and Tyrion walks in and moves like 2 rocks,
and they're right there.
And their bodies are just sitting there all pretty looking and shit. Like, I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, just bad. That whole thing, like the fact that Tyrion moves away like 5 rocks and their bodies are right there. It's like, okay, wait. So one, if they just stood under the fucking doorway, they wouldn't have died because that room just wasn't even completely collapsed. Like the archways were still there. I was like, why would they show that? Like, why would they show that the archways are intact?
Like they could have moved 3 feet to the right and lived.
Yeah, exactly. I like we're being petty, but still, like that.
We are being petty, but
there was a Poland Spring bottle in an episode, which is a fucking meme.
There was a Starbucks cup.
Yeah, Starbucks cup.
It felt like they didn't care at the end. Like, I don't know. Maybe some of these problems happened in the earlier seasons. I don't think they did. I felt like people cared. Like, I don't think there's a Starbucks cup in any of the earlier seasons.
I don't think there is. I think it would have been found out by now. And I think that they just didn't really care. And it kind of showed. I don't think there's a good reason to like put a prop in an episode of Game of Thrones at the end just to be fun. I don't think that's like a thing that you would do. I don't see what are you trying to get from putting this prop in the episode to kind of draw attention to Twitter and stuff. Like, is that I don't think Game of Thrones needs that is what I'm saying. Like it doesn't need people to be going crazy. Like, did you see the Starbucks cup in the last episode? I don't think that's necessary for such a big show franchise. Like it just, I don't know that. Anyway, so let's move on to who's your favorite character though?
Holy shit. We went way off.
Well, I mean, that's just we covered like five different of our bullet points, so which is great.
But we started with least favorite and favorite.
We started with least favorite.
And took a little while to get the favorite.
Yeah, so we're at
my favorite is I don't know. I know people hate ties, but it's maybe I can. My favorite is a tie between Tywin.
Yep.
And fuck. Well, now I'm being. I keep wanting to say Bran, but it's not Bran. Bronn. It's not
okay. The sellsword.
Bronn. Yeah, I kept in my head. I kept accidentally saying Bran. I was like, it's not fucking Bran. Yeah, Bronn. Tyrion's like sellsword. Tyrion's homie throughout the whole show.
Yeah, he's in season 1 too.
And
plenty of
Bronn and Tywin are my like. I feel it's really hard for me to decide between the two. Like,
so elaborate on each of them. What you like about? Let's start with Tywin.
Tywin, first of all, there's not a scene Tywin's in where he isn't just the most impressive actor on the fucking screen.
Can we talk about how that guy is just amazing in every role he's in?
Like, he is so, what's his name? Charles something.
Yes, he is a fucking insane actor in everything he's in. Like, he's just good. And like, I haven't seen him in a role. Man. In The Crown, he's amazing. He always plays like a military general. Like, he's clearly typecasted always. He's always a military general. He's in The Imitation Game, another amazing movie. Everything he's in, he's amazing. But in Game of Thrones, like you said, there isn't a scene where he isn't the fucking best actor on the screen. Like,
he's so good. And so he's just, he commands presence on the screen. His wit, the way he talks, like, his one scene with Queen Olenna. With Joffrey, but like his scene with Queen Olenna and like all of his scenes with Joffrey, and just like he commands so much presence and he's so smart. One of the greatest aspects of Game of Thrones was the period of time with him and Arya. When he and Arya were spending time together.
Season 2. That season 2 is so good.
God, it was I love
season 2 for that.
Good.
Yes.
But I don't just everything about Tywin, he's very smart. He's very
he knows what needs to be done. He knows exactly what needs to be done.
And he doesn't feel, I don't know. He just feels really cool. He feels like back to what you were saying about Sansa turning on her sister. Yeah, she's a kid or whatever. But like more so than all of his children, like Tywin is like, this is about my family.
Yes.
Like everything else is like everything else. This is about the Lannisters. This is about my name. It's
always about legacy. The family legacy. It's always about that with him.
And I don't know. It's just something about that. He hits me. I just like him so much.
I also love the way he checks Joffrey. Like, he's one of the only people who actually
straight checks him. And then that's something I really like about Tyrion. It's a shame that Tyrion was a dwarf, or it's a shame that Tywin. The other thing I like about Tywin is I love really strong characters, which is great character flaws that really round out their character. If Tywin could see past the fact that Tyrion was a dwarf, he would see that Tyrion is his perfect son.
Yes.
Like Tyrion is Tywin. Like he is the perfect son, everything that Tywin would ever want, except for the fact that he's a dwarf.
Yep.
And Tywin can never see past that, and it causes a lot of contention.
I actually have something interesting to say about that when I talk about my favorite character. Spoiler alert, it's Cersei. But I think that Cersei is also a perfect Tywin. But yeah, I want, before we jump into my favorite character. So I agree with you on Tywin. Tywin's amazing. He's definitely on like my top. I don't know, because like I love so many of the characters, but I say
they're really
I'm just gonna say top 5. Like Tywin's probably in my top 5. In a scene where he like checks Joffrey, amazing. He's like one of the only people who actually does put Joffrey in his place, and he doesn't. There's at no point does he like fear Joffrey. You don't
not at all.
Like Cersei blatantly says like I can't control him. Like she's in fear of him. A lot of the other characters, they're literally afraid of Joffrey. Tywin, at no point do you get the sense that he is afraid of his grandson.
Not even close.
You never ever feel that. A good
note on what you just said is Tywin blames, like when Joffrey cut off Ned's head, that wasn't the plan. That wasn't what anybody agreed on. And then last minute, Joffrey was like, cut his head off. And Cersei was like, what the fuck? And then Tywin is like, and then Cersei was like, oh, I couldn't control him. And Tywin's like, that's your fucking son. Like, what do you mean you couldn't control him? Like, Tywin's like, what are you talking about? Like, he's fucking 12. Like,
yeah, like he's a kid. Like, he's a kid. Like, you should be able to control him. Like, what is going like, and it's more so speaking to the fact that you didn't raise him right to be controlled. Like, you should have raised him in a way where you would have had control over him when he was obviously at some point going to become the king, right? Because let's not act like Robert Baratheon was going to ever live long. He was an unhealthy man, right? If he wasn't going to die from some kind of STD, he was definitely going to die from just like debauchery. Like, there's no fucking way Robert Baratheon was ever living long. So you should have already, I don't know. She just wasn't thinking ahead. And I just feel like she raised Joffrey like terribly, or didn't raise him at all, because he just ran wild. And it shows that she just had no control over him. Whereas Tywin actually has control over his children still. Like when he tells Cersei, you're going to marry the gay guy, and tells Tyrion, you're going to marry Sansa after we just killed her brother and her mom. Like, that's what's going to happen. And they're like, no. Well, Cersei's like, no, I won't do it. And he's like, you will. And that was going to, like, if he didn't get killed, like, that was going to happen. Like, he was going to force that shit to happen. So I don't know. Like, Tywin's amazing. Real quick, let's do Bronn.
Okay. So Bronn, I also like a lot. He like introduced right in season 1. So right off the gate, you might know he's got, if you remembered from earlier, he's got an immediate connection for me, in that he made my least favorite character look like a dumbass. Least favorite character is her name. She's not important. I'm not going to remember her name ever.
Lysa
She's
Arryn.
irrelevant.
Yeah, Lysa.
Yeah, Elizabeth. So he made that dumb bitch look so dumb. She's sitting there. She's about to get Tyrion killed. She's like, nobody's going to fight for you. Trial by combat, whatever. And Bronn just shows up, and he had this like attitude. And he just was really cool. He was a sellsword. He just had this really cool attitude, but also he fought for Tyrion. He's like, oh yeah, I'll do it. And then he like killed him. They're like, you don't fight fair. He's like, I'm alive.
Yeah, they say something along the lines of like you don't wear armor or something like that, and it's like, no, I don't, but he did, and like the guy's like clearly dead, like he went through the moon door.
Yep. And he's just, I really liked his attitude. I like that he made that lady look like an idiot. Yeah. And then from there, he was always a fun, pleasurable character to have on screen. Like I love before the war of Battle of Blackwater Bay, I think it's called, when Rob's brother Stannis is attacking. When Stannis is attacking, the night before that war, when he is getting drunk with all the Lannisters and he's singing the Lannister song, and they're like, how do you know the Lannister song? And he's like, I fuck Lannister girls or whatever. Like he's just like super cool and like,
that is the Battle of that's season 2's like conclusion. Battle of Blackwater. Stannis
when he's in the
attacking. King's Landing,
before the fight starts, and he's drinking with all the Lannister soldiers. Yes. They're like, how do you know Lannister songs? And he's just like, I fuck Lannister girls. And he's just like, and I don't remember exactly what he says, but
he has that whole moment with the Hound too, which I think was badass, where they were about to fight.
Yeah.
And you don't know who is going to, because like, you know, the Hound is like like he's insane. And you know that Bronn is really quick, and he's also a really good, like, you never saw Bronn lose a fight in the entire show. So like when you see him versus the Hound, or like the thought of it, right? Like they're kind of like, and Bronn's way smaller, but you're looking at him, you're like, yo, it doesn't really matter that he's smaller. If he gets like a stab here or there, like it's over. Yeah. Like speed actually matters. So you don't know who's going to win, but he steps to him like he's basically like pretty fearless, and I like that about him.
Yes, and he's cool. Yeah, I just really like his demeanor. He's fun.
I like that he doesn't play by the rules either, right? Like
he doesn't play by the rules.
He doesn't care. That's evident from like season 1.
His first scene.
His first scene is like him pretty much not playing by the rules, and I like that he keeps that throughout. And going all the way to the end of the show, there's a part where he threatens Jaime and Tyrion. He walks in on him with a crossbow.
Yep.
And he threatens him. He's like, you're going to give me a fucking castle or I'm going to kill you. And so he like threatens them, right? And he basically is saying, they say, why do you think that you deserve a fucking castle? Like, there's no way you do. And he's like, how did your fucking people come into this kind of wealth? They were all fucking thieves and sell swords and like scammers, basically, is what he's saying. Like, your people, at some point, somebody in your fucking lineage, way back, did some scamming shit to become as a lord or a king or whatever they did to get here. Like, so I'm doing the same thing right now for basically my lineage. And I love that he basically said, like, this is how it happens. Like, this is how power transitions. Somebody in your fucking family was a con artist too. And actually, I looked it up. Apparently, the way the Lannisters actually became a house, like a really big house, was Land the Clever. That was the name of, like, I don't know if it's Tywin's grandfather or how far back it goes, but basically Land the Clever cheated someone else out of their castle, their kingdom, basically. Like, so the Lannisters essentially started from a con artist. Like, a con artist is the reason why
Bronn.
They started like Bronn. We saw all to say they started like Bronn.
Bronn, he's always a pleasure to see on screen. He's really fun. He has great moments when he's retraining Jaime how to fight, and
he's funny as hell. He's
funny as hell. The part when
one of the funniest characters in the show.
The part when he's in prison with the Sand Snakes, who are also some of my most hated characters, but I'm not going to get into that. But when he's in prison and he's just like sitting there singing and shit. I forget what he's saying.
Brother, brother, my days here are done. A Lannister's taken my wife. But what does it matter? For all men must die. Yeah, I've tasted the something wife. Like I've tasted the Dornishman's wife. I've tasted the Dornishman's wife.
I love that song. Oh my! But for all of that, he's just always, he makes you happy. He makes me happy when I watch him, and I like his character. I think his character has a good growth throughout the series. Mm-hmm. He goes through some great moments. He has some wins, he has some losses, but overall, he's a really fun character. You get to see him for the span from season 1 all the way to season 8.
Yeah, he actually is one of the few characters that makes it all the way, which is like side characters don't usually do that.
Not at all.
Like yeah, they just don't. And Game of Thrones is very people don't live very long in those times, and like the fact that he made it from literally season 1 all the way to season 8 is amazing in itself. Like that is amazing, and not being like, you know, one of the major houses of
so I'm going to say, in fairness, I think I'm going to leave them tied. This is my last argument why I think overall Tywin was such a stronger, impactful character.
Yes,
because Tywin only had a season and a half or whatever.
Tywin wasn't in the show. Tywin's in the show season 2 to like the end of season. He gets killed. The last episode of season 4 is like around when he dies.
So Tywin, in the time that he was in the show, he made that fucking moment last. And in that window, he puts himself at my number 1.
Yeah.
And Bronn puts himself at my number 1 through his journey through 8 seasons.
Yeah.
So if Tywin was in 8 seasons, he'd probably definitively be my number 1, is what I'm saying.
If Tywin lived, I mean, yeah. And it would also change so much of the show. And we could do a whole discussion of how I used to do hypotheticals about if Ned didn't get killed, if Tywin didn't get killed, like how everything changes, but we could do that at another time.
Yep.
Okay, so I will do my favorite, as I mentioned earlier, is actually Cersei, and it did not start out that way. My favorite for pretty much every single season used to be Tyrion, and then Tyrion. It would change.
That's a good favorite.
Yeah, Tyrion was like my favorite, and I mean Tyrion's most people. I feel like Tyrion might be most people's favorites, and Daenerys, obviously, right? Like she's a dragon queen.
Yeah,
but
Daenerys. There's a lot of children now named Daenerys.
Wow, really?
Yeah, I think Daenerys was like a very popular. I don't remember the exact year.
That's cool to me, though. I like
a really popular baby name. Like it was like baby name like popularity, and Daenerys like rose in the list like a bunch.
That's actually cool as shit because I like the name Dany like for a girl. Like I actually think that's a really cool name for a girl. But yeah, so Cersei was not always my favorite character, and I actually used to hate her. Like I think that she's written to be hated, right? Like when she first rips up the letter that Robert Baratheon had Ned write. And she's like, we have a new king now. Like I immediately just was like, I don't fucking like I don't like this character. Like this fucking character is annoying. Like who the fuck does she think she is? Like you're just a queen mother. She's gotten put in a place so many times for just being the queen mother and thinking that she has more power than she actually does. But as the show went on, when we get to season 6, and so season 6 is like after she did the walk of shame. Like, you know, they stripped her naked, beat her, walked her through the entire King's Landing, basically. Season 6, she has like this new zombie mountain dude. She's like very adamantly like she's in some I don't give a fuck mode now. Like Cersei is like on some absolute like when the High Sparrow dude is like, I want to see you or whatever, and they come to like bring her from the Red Keep, and she's like, tell the High Sparrow that he can come and see me in the Red Keep. The mountain kills one of the guard dudes, like and like his like he just like snaps his neck and like kills him so quick. And Cersei, like that famous line that's still being used today, I choose violence. That is from Game of Thrones. I actually Googled where I choose violence originated from because I knew that Cersei said it. I just wasn't sure if like that was the first time that line had been spoken in something that was popular and it became like a thing. Because people still say it now, like I choose violence. She is the first person to say I choose violence. And that fucking line is still being used today. And that is like one of the most iconic, like I just love that line. I love the gravity of that line. But anyway, so season 6, right? She has all of these enemies with the Tyrells, right? Like they've taken her son, her last kid, like Tommen. Marjorie's like has the little boy wrapped around her fingers using sex, and Olenna like, pretty much gave Marjorie like the instructions on how to do it. She also has the High Sparrow who like has already fucked her over really badly, even though she tried to use him against Marjorie, it backfired, and then like he made her atone for her sins. So she has like all of these things against her at this point. And the way she blew up the Sept and wiped out all of her enemies at once, like she literally ended the entire Tyrell lineage with that like terrorist attack. Like she literally ended the entire Tyrell because like Olenna can't have children, obviously. She's old as hell. And so there's no more men and there's no more women in the entire Tyrell family. So she wipes out an entire house. And it's also the second richest house and probably the second most powerful house at the time. She wipes them like from history. Like they're gone. Like there are no more Tyrells after what she did. She also gets rid of the sparrows. Like the High Sparrow's dead. Like she just takes out so many, her uncle, who was like against her too. And he was like, you know, I'm not going to be here while you stack the high court with sycophants and shit like that. Like he's like, I'll be at Casterly Rock. And he basically wasn't taking any of her orders anymore. He was like, you're just a queen mother. Like you don't have any real power. She killed him too. and she just killed like a ton of people.
She really did.
And I didn't see that coming, like, because that's not in the books. Like that was some shit that, you know, either they made it up, or I don't know, George told them about that, or like I don't know what season 6 episode 10 is, but that is my favorite episode of Game of Thrones because of the first 15 minutes, the music, direction, and Cersei like just drinking wine and watching that explosion happen is so fucking epic and iconic to me. Her in that battle armor, her coronation that episode, her becoming like the queen of the Seven Kingdoms, something that just like really hasn't been done. Like her literally sitting on top of the Iron Throne, which honestly, I never saw that coming. Like watching the show from episode 1, I never thought that like, oh shit, like one day maybe Cersei will be queen. Like that never occurred to me that could even be a thing. And the way she like seized power, I love it. All her children were dead. And she basically, when Tommen died, she felt like, you know, he kind of like betrayed her. So she was like, just bury him where the old Sept used to be. Kind of like bury him with Marjorie. Like where, like, I don't fucking care. Like just get like she looked at him, she looked down. At first the guy was like, I don't want to show you his body. And then she was like, no, I want to see it. She looks at him and then she's like, bury him where the old Sept used to be. And it's kind of like Cersei lets go. She has nothing else anymore, right? Like she has no more children. That was her whole thing. She lived for her kids. And so now she has no more kids. So now she's like in this savage mode, which I fucking loved. So I actually, the last seasons are not very good, but I love Cersei in those last seasons. And then when I went back and watched it from season 1 all the way up until season 8, I realized Cersei is really Tywin, kind of low-key, high-key. So Tywin took out the second richest house, a house reign, and Marjorie is told this by Cersei like earlier on, where she says, do you know like the Reigns of Castamere, why that's a song? Was because Tywin wiped out the second richest house. Well, Cersei also wipes out the second richest house. Then you have other comparisons like the Iron Bank, when they come to collect their money in like the last like season 7, the Iron Bank comes to collect their money. And they say, we've never been paid this fast, even by Tywin. Like you actually are outdoing your father. So the show writers blatantly want to compare Cersei to Tywin. And then there's another scene earlier on in like season 4 when he's still alive. And she pleads with him. She says, don't you see, I'm the only one of your kids who actually has been listening this whole time. Like I'm the only one who actually has been doing everything for the family, because like Tywin's all about legacy, and Cersei argues that like everything I've done has been for the Lannister name, which is true. Like she's very, very about the Lannisters. Like that's her thing. So like Tywin was all about that, and I think it's really cool how like if you go back and look at it, when Ned is trying to like essentially say, you know, Joffrey's not going to be king right now, that's essentially saying the Lannisters are not about to have power anymore. Cersei's like, fuck that, we have a new king. She did what needed to be done. She did what needed to be done for her family, for the Lannister bloodline. Like Cersei literally overwrote like whatever Robert Baratheon was talking about. She didn't give a fuck about that. And I grew to love her character when I rewatched it. I'm like, yo, she's a savage. Don't get me wrong. Like she's a fucked up individual, an incestuous fucked up individual. But at the end of the day, I think she's a necessary evil for the show. She's just how we talked about Joffrey. Like these characters, like Cersei is basically, the way I see it, she's like kind of like the Orochimaru of Game of Thrones, like an evil that's been around from the beginning. Everyone knows that this character is fucking evil. Like, you know, there's no surprise, but like it kind of turns at a point where you're like, I kind of understand her now. Like, I kind of get it. But then you always look at her like she's still a villain though. Like you kind of like Orochimaru, I'm always kind of like, oh, but he's still Orochimaru. Like,
he's still
I kind of look at her like,
kidnaps little boys.
Yeah,
says he wants their body. Like, oh,
exactly.
Like,
Cersei's still out here fucking her brother. So it's like, like how, like I don't. But I don't know. I love that character. I love how she. I don't know. I love how she like. It's just comparable to Tywin in so many ways. And she's also extremely smart. She tells Jaime, you always were the dumbest Lannister. Like just shit like that. Like
yeah.
She's just kind of amazing. You really think I'm going to send my army to the north? That has never happened in history. We've never sent our army north ever. That's just never. And why would we start today? Like that's not happening. We'll deal with whatever threat comes out of the fucking south. We'll deal with whatever threat comes out of the north. Whether it be walkers or humans, we'll deal with it when it comes here. But we're not sending our men there. Like that's not happening. Like she's just. I don't know. It's strange, right? She's kind of like a battle tactician, like her dad was, because Tywin is known for being a war general. Like he's a war general. He's an amazing, like he's won every war. Pretty much he's been in. He's an incredible war general, a strategist. And Cersei, and maybe they shouldn't have wrote her like this, but in the last season, like she was outdoing fucking Tyrion at one point. Like I remember season 7, Tyrion was like, we're going to take Casterly Rock, and like that'll turn the tides or
that
whatever.
sequence was dope. Like,
And then
as it's happening, so dope.
he's because like she's like, what's the plan? You know, they're talking about like, what are we going to do? And Tyrion explains what the plan is. And as it's happening, we're watching like a clip which actually was happening in real time. Like that was what actually happened. They go to Casterly Rock and there's no one there. And so like so now you have all the Unsullied like stranded. And I'm like, holy shit, Tyrion is being outsmarted by his sister, basically. Like that's nuts. Like they turned her into, so she literally is a mirror of Tywin, and I love that for her. I love her savagery. I choose violence, because if people know me, like I'm very much like fuck people that, you know, fuck you over. Like I choose my family, I choose my friends and the people that I love over everything else. So when it comes down to it, like I choose violence is definitely like a mantra for me.
Just play a card game with them.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. I become a different person when I play cards.
I choose violence.
I choose violence. I'm a very violent card game player. So yeah. But yes, it's Cersei for me. Like after when I look at the show in its totality, Cersei just does it for me. She just does it for me. Like I love her character. Her character is consistent. I think that's what it is. Her character is consistent. Her character
she's a dope character. And like you said, she's a villain all throughout the show, but she's written in a way where you don't have an egregious hate for her like you do for Joffrey. I think some people do. I think some people
probably hate her like to
Cersei. But I never did.
Yes. And I think that like if you look at her motivations for why she did what she did, like obviously when Ned threatened her, right, with the incest thing, the children not being Robert Baratheon's, right? Like she essentially got him like killed. She killed Robert, and she got Ned essentially killed in a way too. Like she at least had him thrown in prison and all that. She basically did what she had to do when it needed to be done.
To protect her family.
Yeah, like to protect her family. Like she did exactly what needed to be done. And I really fuck with that. Like I don't know, something about that. You did exactly what needed to be done. I mean, she fucking slept with Euron Greyjoy, right, to get his ships and stuff on her side. Like she just, I don't know, she's just always doing exactly what needed to be done, and I respect it.
What's sick about both of ours, I mean, other than the fact that I'm a little bitch and I have a tie, what's sick is that there's a connection between both of our favorite and least favorite. You with Cersei and Sansa, and one of your main reasons for not liking Sansa is her going against her family, and Cersei being so like with her family, but then also Cersei and Sansa have
Cersei being a little too much with her family.
Word. But also Cersei and Sansa have a direct connection, right? Throughout the show.
Yeah, and which is good.
My favorite and least favorite being Lady on the Rock and Lady
on the Rock, Lysa Arryn. Not Lady on the Rock.
But that lady and Bronn, not that they don't have a connection nearly like Cersei, but the fact that his introduction is fucking her over. Yeah. And then like from there, I don't know, it's kind of cool little thing. Yeah, no, that is actually cool. I didn't even draw that parallel. Really cool shit. But yeah, Game of Thrones, amazing show. Like we can never take that away. Like the show is still amazing. I don't like people trying to act like just because it ended the way it did that it's not still an amazing show. Like if you've never watched Game of Thrones, I still recommend 100%. That you watch it. Like obviously, you know, I don't expect anyone who hasn't watched Game of Thrones to listen to this episode of the podcast because it probably won't interest you, right? But people who watch Game of Thrones, even if you didn't like the ending, I think that you should still recommend it to people who haven't watched the show yet. I agree. Because I recommended it to people who haven't watched it and they enjoyed. My friend Gary was absolutely blown away, and he watched it after it concluded, knowing that it's going to end terrible. Like he knew he heard everybody say it was terrible, but he still watched it. And when he watched it, when I tell you that, like, first of all, he watched it to the point where that's all he was doing for the next like three to 4 weeks. Like he literally watched it straight through, couldn't even do anything else with his life. And he enjoyed it so much that like we talked about it for hours every single day. Like I would be like, what episode are you up to? And like we would just talk for hours on what he had just watched and like how cool it is. And I would pretend like I don't know where it's going. Like I would never let on too much. I'd be like, well, so what do you think is going to happen now? And he would tell me, and I would be like, and I would kind of play like along as though like I don't know, this fucking character's about to die. The best part is, so what Frazier is saying is true. And then Frazier and Gary would go to bed. But then in the morning at like 5, 6 a.m. when Gary would wake up for work, every morning I would hang out with Gary on Discord because we would play Dragon Ball Fighters together. And I would play Dragon Ball Fighters with him, and then me and him would talk about Game of Thrones. Yeah, like me and him were talking about. Yeah, Game of Thrones. It's actually our group of friends is so cool because if one of us hasn't seen something, it's kind of like we all get to like revisit the whole thing. Like we get to relive it again. Like just Gary watching it again, or I guess Gary watching it for the first time was kind of like us going through it
again and getting the experience of like, holy shit, like the Red Wedding, seeing someone be murdered like that, like, you know, it's just so cool. Every time I get somebody new on Game of Thrones, and I still spread the word of Game of Thrones, I think it's still a fantastic show. I do think the ending is trash like everyone else. That's not a hot take. It's just like whatever. But the show, I'm not going to throw the whole show away because the ending is bad. Like people still talk about how great Lost is, and Lost apparently, because I don't know, but apparently Lost ended really
goes
bad.
Off the fucking rails.
Yeah, people say
it just goes off the rails.
The Sopranos, they said, ended really bad, and that's one of the greatest shows of all time too. So like, I don't think that the ending should completely discredit everything that you saw for a good 5 or 6 seasons. Yep. I just don't think that you should throw the entire thing out because of that. And
it's worth watching. It's still worth watching.
Also,
I have an argument. We're not going to go and talk about the Marvel movies, but I said earlier that I'm going through them. I have just finished Endgame, and I watched the next Spider-Man movie. I'm not going to really talk about any of that right now. No opinions on it. However, except for I want to say, just like with Game of Thrones, I think Infinity War and Endgame were so good that you should be recommending them to your friends, even if they say they don't like the Marvel movies, and they should also watch. I think even the ones that are bad, like the first Thor movie, I don't care what anybody says, and I don't think anybody disagrees. The first Thor movie is terrible. However, I think you should watch all of them because they tell the whole story to bring you to Infinity War. And also, what I'm trying to say here is with Game of Thrones, watch it. It's fucking amazing. Even when you get to the last season and it's not that good, it's still fun to talk about it.
Yeah.
Like, it's still fun to talk about bad. Like, if you watch a movie and it's bad, it's still fun to be like, yo, remember when this fucking dumb shit happened? Like, it's still fun to talk about. So,
I agree.
Watch it anyway.
Yeah, I agree. And also, so like one of the greatest anime of all time, Naruto, like ended terribly. And again, not a hot take.
It did.
Like Naruto is one of my favorite. Like I realized the more I thought about it over the years, like it's been gone for a while now. But Naruto ended really bad, and everyone knows that. But that doesn't change the fact that Naruto has some of the most iconic and greatest moments in all of manga and anime. Like it is just,
and it's so impactful. Like
such an impactful series, such an amazing series. We're going to obviously have an episode on Naruto coming soon, but I don't believe in just throwing something away completely just because it ended poorly. If everything else checks out, like the storytelling up to a certain point was amazing, and then it nosedives, but you can't throw away the amazing part. Like I still recommend, like, if someone hasn't seen Naruto, and I don't know who that person would be, but if you haven't, like, obviously fucking watch Naruto. Like it's it's a very good anime. Like, yes, it doesn't end too good, but it's still worth watching, and you'll be part of a lot of discussions that Naruto has, because Naruto to this day still has a lot. You
can talk about it all the time. I remember I went through a thing because like I finished Naruto and then I hadn't gone back to it for like a couple years had passed.
Yeah,
and it started to build up this thing where my memory got clouded, and I was starting to say how much I hated Naruto.
Same.
Then one day I reread it, and like during my reread, I remember getting emotional, getting hype, and going through the whole thing. There were still great moments where I was like, man, this actually was pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
Until a certain point hit, like it was pretty damn good. And same thing with Game of Thrones. Like I rewatched Game of Thrones at least once a year for each season.
Yep.
And every single time it was fucking amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing every time. And usually when I start to rewatch things, I start to, and I think we all probably do this. You start to like poke holes in it. Like this happened to me with The Dark Knight. Every time I started, like I rewatched it so many times, I started to see things that I just didn't like about it. And I remember initially thinking like, this is the best movie I've ever seen in my entire life. But then you rewatch it and you start to be like, it's still good, but like this is Game of Thrones doesn't really have that for me. When I watch Game of Thrones,
it gets better.
Like when I rewatch Game of Thrones, I usually find something that I just did not realize at all.
It gets better every time.
Like it just gets better. It doesn't have that it doesn't deteriorate like other things usually do.
And you can't even make the argument that like give it time. Like I gave it time. I rewatched season 1. It's 10 years later, and it's fucking amazing.
It's like just so good. All right, well. That wraps up the Game of Thrones segment. I want to jump into listener letters.
Sounds good.
All right. So, guys, as you know, if you want us to read a listener letter out loud on the show, please send it to IMNerdPodcast@gmail.com, and we will read it. We have one here from our guy, Matt. He says, this is a pretty long one, so bear with me. I'm reading this. And, I want another thing. I don't go through the whole correcting punctuation or like sentence structure or grammar at all. So when I'm reading these exactly as they are written. And if they are written as like poorly, I'm just going to say it. Like if they're written poorly, I know how to read out loud. It's not a problem that I have. It's just that it might not have the necessary commas or periods in place. So if you guys could, it would help to organize your sentences in a certain way. But
that said,
I do read them straight out.
I'm awful at my sentence structure, and I enjoy hearing Frazier stutter. So if you want to fuck it up on purpose,
well, so if you fuck it up too much, it will not get on the show. I'll tell you that right now. So you can fuck right off. You can fuck right off, Kenny. Because I'm the one reading these things, and you know how people feel about reading out loud. I have no problem reading out loud, but if it's just written like terribly, I just can't.
Send it to me, I'll read it.
Yep. Yeah, you can send it to Kenny, and he can sit on the show and make a fucking skit out of it. Okay, so this is from Matt. He says, "Hi, Frazier and Kenny, and what's good, listeners? So my topic for discussion is Yu-Gi-Oh! Remote duels. For context, we recently had a bit of drama regarding a cheater who was called out with video proof and a policy rule preventing recording a match when remote dueling on Discord. Official Konami tournament policy has banned recording matches in any capacity, even if doing so would help catch cheaters and promote a more healthy dynamic. For contrast, a similar game, Pokemon VGC, allows recording of matches in tournaments and via their PvP online rank ladder, and allows streamers to publish these recordings via YouTube or Twitch. If it is an officially sanctioned tournament match, i.e. the Players' Cup, the matches have to conclude and the official stream needs to be shown by the Pokemon Company International first before being shown by any content creators, as far as I'm aware." Then he goes on to say, "Since it seems cheating in Yu-Gi-Oh! Remote duels has become a total meme at this point, this begs the question I wish to ask you both. Should official Konami tournament policy be amended to allow for a judge or tournament organizer or individual player to record remote matches for quality assurance purposes in order to promote a more healthy game?"
Okay, so real quick, a 1,000,000%. Like this, yes. I can't believe what I just, because I'm reading it along with Frazier. Like I have the email open as well.
Yeah.
So I cannot even believe what I just read. Like that, Konami is not known for making the best decisions, and I guess this is more proof. This is ridiculous.
Yeah, it is actually. I don't really know. So I can't personally understand the reason why they banned video recording of matches. Like I don't.
That is so dumb.
Like maybe I should have asked my Facebook, and I probably will after this podcast. Like, what is the what bullet points can you give me for the pros of banning? Like, how could this be a good thing to ban recording of remote matches where players shuffle the deck themselves? They could do anything they want essentially because they know that this can't be recorded. So like if they do cheat, there's no actual way to verify that it happened. It's kind of absurd.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with recent Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's very easy. Let's just say Lightsworn. If I'm playing remotely, I can just pretend to shuffle. Dude, you could have a double of your deck, shuffle your deck, and then fucking switch it out with the deck that you stacked. Yeah. And be like, oh, well, oh shit, 4 lights. Oh, JD. Oh my God, man.
I don't see how it could possibly be a good thing to not allow recording of. I can only see it as a pro. Like what can people do with a video of a duel that happened that was sanctioned? Like what can you do with it that's so bad? Like what could even happen with that?
To draw parallels, Matt already drew parallels to like Pokemon and stuff, but for example, everything's been online, right? I'm really in the fighting games. Every fighting game tournament has been online. What happens is insert streamer A, insert streamer B, they play in tournament, and the tournament is streaming the match. But also, let's just say Punk to God is streaming the match, as well as Filipino Champ doesn't play, but Filipino Champ was the first name that came to mind, as well as Filipino Champ. So like both of these individual players would be playing in the tournament. The tournament's streaming their match, but they're also streaming the match from their streams at home. And everybody's just streaming it. And I don't really understand why you wouldn't do that. Like, why not? Now, in a fighting game, you can't really cheat like you can in Yu-Gi-Oh! But that's even more reason why Yu-Gi-Oh! Should let you record it.
Yeah. I don't really get it. I literally in the moment. So this is like, we're live recording this right now. I can't think of a reason. Like I'm not even going to pause to edit so that we can like think about reasons. And in the moment, I cannot think of a good reason why you would not want people to have a recording of their remote duel, especially knowing that, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is not an innocent community. There's cheating that happens in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like that is just, I mean, I'm sure there's cheating that happens in every card game ever, but like Yu-Gi-Oh! Has had a history of cheating. I'm not going to say that is its entire history. I'm not going to say that like that is Yu-Gi-Oh, because it's not.
Well, there are confirmed cheaters.
There are
we
confirmed.
Won't say their names right now, but
exactly. But there are confirmed cheaters. It's been I mean, there's a famous video of me dueling someone and getting cheated multiple times in one duel. But like, think about this. If that duel wasn't being recorded and I was just playing him without anyone watching, I didn't realize that I was getting cheated either. The stream caught it. Like, it was only caught because it was being recorded and it was being streamed. Literally, the stream said, yo, Frazier's getting cheated like crazy right now. I didn't know because I had taken a break from Yu-Gi-Oh! And I had come back. So I don't know. I just feel like I can't come up with a good reason why it's not allowed. So I completely don't understand the reasoning. And, that's fine. Like, maybe they have a good reason why they don't want people recording remote duels. I just don't know what that is. And I can't think of it. And I pride myself on being a pretty intellectual person. So I just don't know.
Another great example is like in the speedrunning community. There's been a lot of rules and stuff. I can't remember all of them, but there's been a lot of updates to how you're allowed to submit a world record in the speedrunning community, because there's a lot of cheating in that. And even with like, people go back, like people cheat and splice their videos up, and people have gone to old world records and stuff and being like, hey, with the new technology and stuff, and looking at like, this is a cheated world record. This is a cheated.
Oh,
and
really?
So now, like, yeah. And so it's caused like a debate where people are like, some people are saying, in order for your world record speedrun or whatever to be submitted, it needs to be live streamed. Like, you need the live, like there needs to be proof. Like, you need to live stream the run.
Yes.
Because if it's just like a video and blah, 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 and there's not like the timer on the screen, like you can just cut that shit up.
Yeah. Like, editing is crazy now. We're in 2021. We can make whatever we want happen. Like, technology has gotten to a point where you can easily, I'm sure, for a speed run, now that I think about it, like if somebody wanted to speed run Super Mario 64, you can easily chop up some clips and get it to look a certain way and submit it. So I get it. So
I'm 100% with Matt, and I don't understand. I can't imagine a good argument for Konami's side in this. I'd love to hear it, but
yeah, I don't understand that one. So Matt, if what you're saying is like, it's terrible that they can't record and that they should amend it, I agree 100%. I am against a lot of the things that Konami does. This one is probably, I'm really adamant about. I mean, I'll never remote duel anyway, but I'm still against the whole idea of pretty much preventing people from like having a good way to catch cheating. Like, I just don't get it. I don't like it.
It also just seems anti-content creator. Like, I don't really understand why they want to gatekeep their players that are content creators. Like, just let your content creators be content creators. Like, I don't really understand. Like, these people make your game more popular. Why are you gatekeeping?
I agree. Okay, so moving on to our next listener letter. And so we do have more, but we're just gonna let's see how many we can get through. All right, so this next one is from Vincent. It's a pretty long one too. All right,
I just opened it up. This one's beefy. Let's go.
Yeah, this one is long, but we appreciate you guys actually writing in. Like, I appreciate the time it took to write all of this. So, okay, so Vincent says, what was the most devastating loss you've had in an event that sticks with you to this day? A little background info. Throughout my 4 years of competitive Yu-Gi-Oh play, I hadn't ever top 8 at a regional, but made myself a little recognizable by good players, most notably Joe Bogley. The event that sticks with me to this day was at a regional in Plattsburgh, New York, during the early 2012 format. Tengu Plants, Agents, Chaos Dragons, GK, Dark World, Inzectors, Windups, Rabbit, all viable. I played Agents with tour guides because I was a broke kid, played 3 Herald of Orange Lights, and was fortunate enough to have 2 copies of Maxi. I started the regional 6-0, having beaten a couple plant decks, a Dark World, an Insector, and a couple others. Round 7, I played versus Simon Yip, who was playing Rabbit. I took him to game 3, he went first, and locked me out with a full board and emptiness. The same Simon Yip who goes on to topping Chicago with Chaos Dragons later that year. GG's next round. Round 8, I play versus Dan LaMartina, who was playing TGs. We go to game 3, mid to late game. I have a board of Hyperion and not much else. Little resources left, but I had a slight advantage because I was popping his back rows with Hyperion's effect. I got rid of most of his monsters, but he kept cycling them because they're TGs. I vividly remember the tense atmosphere because this was top tables of the final round. Dan was already this established top player who had gone to Worlds years ago and was obviously still very good. After completing a turn, it was Dan's draw phase, and as soon as he drew his card, players behind him made gestures like sheesh or yikes and walked away. Dan sets one back row, the same back row that he just drawn and passed. Then on my turn, I draw. I could feel victory almost in my grasp. He was almost out of back row and his TGs were running out. I opt to pop his newly set back row, thinking it could be Mirror Force or D Prison, Dan replies, flipping it, and it's TG1 EM1. The game was over. I had no fairies left in grave, and there was no way to come back from that. A small aside, I met this guy at the event who came up to me asking, would you trade or sell the top 8 playmat if you top 8 today? Me being prideful, I said, I consider, but probably not because top 8ing an event would mean so much to me. If I top, I had to keep the playmat to immortalize my accomplishment. Round 8 ends, and I'm frantically waiting for standings. My tiebreakers were great. I lost to 2 guys who finished X1, and I had a small chance of sneaking in the top 8. About 20 minutes later, a judge is holding the standings with a crowd all swarming around him trying to see the final results. The guy I talked to earlier finds me and goes, you're Vincent, right? You top 8 it. I go to the standings in disbelief, ecstatic with energy, only to find that I finished 9th. It's still painful typing this story out and reliving that roller coaster of emotions. I've gotten my invite to nationals multiple times. I've attended nationals in 2012 and 2013. I've met a ton of pros along the way, including you, Frazier, but that top 8 remains elusive to this day. I don't plan on returning to the game after seeing the direction it's going from afar, but yeah, throughout that Saturday, I was hopeful of creating a lifelong, positive, and momentous Yu-Gi-Oh memory, only for it to become a day I'd want to, but can never forget. What is one of yours and or Kenny's most painful memories in a competitive environment?
Woo! That was a good letter.
Yes. Okay, I will start. So one of my most painful memories in a competitive environment. I have a couple, I'm sure, but I'll just give like the one that's immediately coming to my mind. 2013 Nationals Dragon Rulers. I am playing Dragon Rulers with Emptiness, the same deck that won. Patrick Hoban won with Dragon Rulers with Emptiness. I'm playing the exact same thing. And the people who I traveled to Chicago for that Nationals with, like we discussed our decks. Like that's just normal, right? Like these are your friends, these are people you test with and stuff. So we discussed our decks. And I was like, I am not main decking Swift Scarecrow. When I max see someone, if they keep special summoning, they could technically kill me if they know that I don't main Swift Scarecrow. Because like you don't really have an incentive to stop. Like it doesn't mean anything if I'm just going to die anyway. Like people stop for max C because they're like, well, if he has Swift Scarecrow, I give him all these cards in his hand because I keep special summoning. And then he'll kill me in reverse because he'll have so much card advantage. So people have an incentive to stop. And that worked for me throughout the tournament. I topped nationals and I played against one of my friends who I came to the event with, who knows that I do not play Swift Scarecrow. So I maxi him and he thinks for a while and he just keeps special summoning. He kills me. And it really fucking sucks to lose that way, because that was game 1. I won game 2. I'm pretty sure in the game 3 he won. I'll never like forget about that because it's just like, damn, like him knowing that I didn't have Scarecrow, Swift Scarecrow made it where like there wasn't really a decision being made there. It was just kind of like, damn. Well, he doesn't have to think about it. He knew I didn't have it. So like if he keeps summoning monsters and just attacks for 8,000, like it's over, even though I maxed him. And so that really sucked. I think I really had a good chance to like win that nationals or go to worlds that year. Like now, like I don't really fucking care anymore. When it happened, I remember that being a depressing fucking feeling. Just like, damn, I played my friend. That's already annoying enough. Like, 64 people and I get paired up against somebody I drove here with. Like that's already like wild. That nationals was thousands of people, but losing to someone who like blatantly knew you can't stop this. Whereas I've played against several opponents throughout the tournament who actually have stopped from maxi, or I'll even make a gesture like I have Scarecrow. Like I'll say like, are you entering battle phase? Let me know when you enter battle phase. Like just stuff like that to kind of make them think that I might have it.
Yeah.
Like as they're special summoning, I'll be like, let me know when you're about to enter battle phase. And I'll say something like that. So that makes them think this motherfucker has Swift Scarecrow, and they'll stop. And so those kind of mind games work for me. But like there's no mind game. I can't even bluff it. Like he knows it's not on my deck list. Yeah, again, like I'm just saying the same thing over and over at this point. Like it just sucked. That was just one of my fucking crushing defeats. I really wanted to do, like, I did do well at the nationals. I can't say I wanted to do well. I did do well. I just wanted to.
But you really felt like you could win.
I really felt like I could win. And then obviously seeing that Patrick Hoban won with Dragon Rulers featuring Vanity's Emptiness in the main deck, I was like, damn, like I actually had the right idea. So
yep. I want to make a point though. What you just said struck a light bulb for me. In the last episode, we talked about something very similar on our Pokemon episode, which is the one right before this one. We talked about how the transfer from Gen 4 to Gen 5, there was team preview, and you could see the Pokemon on your opponent's team, how that changes decision-making, and in how recent Yu-Gi-Oh! And when you get to top whatever, they give the players all have your deck list.
Yeah. And
so the thing
you have the whole deck list.
So like basically what happened to you was like you drove up with your friend, whatever you guys were talking about your deck, and he essentially knew your deck list.
Yes.
And
yes, which is not a privilege that you normally have with an opponent.
Exactly. So it's just interesting because that one little thing, basically your your like mindset of not main decking Swift Scarecrow to make your deck better in whatever way, it worked throughout the whole tournament because nobody knew your deck list.
Yep.
And it was a smart, it was a very smart meta play.
Yeah.
But now when you give all the top players Frazier Smith's deck list, now that doesn't work. Frazier doesn't get to be that creative when he's sitting at home in his basement creating this deck.
Yeah.
I think that's a good point, like in my opinion, against like the tournaments giving away deck list.
Yeah, it really sucked. But yeah, that's a crushing like defeat for me. So I'll give one more because I mean I've played Yu-Gi-Oh for 10 plus years. So I have.
Yeah. Also, before you give your second one, I'll just give mine real quick because mine's a lot quicker.
Okay.
I already talked about mine. You guys already heard it. It's when Frazier beat me.
Oh yeah, when you thought you were about to beat me for the first time.
Yeah, I never was as good as Frazier in this game, and I never went to nearly as many tournaments. But I played the game a ton.
Yeah.
But I was mostly like a local player. Like I didn't travel that much. I traveled a couple times, but not much.
Yeah. So and that's fine. Like whatever.
And in terms of like the biggest players that I knew personally, like the best players that I personally knew were Steve Silverman and Frazier. And I know Sean McKay, but I kind of know Sean through Frazier.
Yeah.
But anyway, so my biggest loss, I already talked about it in one of the previous episodes, but it was definitely
we were playing a tournament and everything. So it's like,
yeah, we were playing a tournament and I was like, I don't know, it's really, because like on one end, it's like, it does suck when you play your friend, but on the other end, it's like, I know how good he is. And like, I want to get better. Like I'm playing the game. Maybe I do want to travel more, right?
Yeah.
Whatever. But I'm playing and it's like, it was really tense. I was having a lot of fun, but it was tense. And it was like, man, like, I really want to win. That means something. It's like, I just want to see if I can win.
Yeah.
I never did I think like, if I beat Frazier right here, that means I'm better than Frazier.
Yeah,
I understand that one win doesn't mean you're better, but one win, it's like a notch. It's like, I was able to do it.
I was able to like, this guy is really fucking good. And I feel the same way, even after I had already won a YCS, beating certain players felt good to me because they were known to be really good. Like every time I beat Billy, every time I beat Jeff, like that shit felt great. Like it feels good to beat people who are good. Regardless of like the conversation of who's better and all of that. It's like, I know I'm really good in it, and to be able to actually display it, because, on one hand, like, yes, it's a card game, so there's variance, but in a long games, decision making and seeing like my decision making actually was able to overcome someone who's also a YCS champion, someone who's also considered one of the best players of all time.
It's super dope.
It's just a battle of the fucking Yonko, or like it's really cool.
And you real quick on that note, like, yeah, card games are a game of variance, but there's tons of decision making in it. Just as a quick side note, we've been messing around with GOAT format for fun. And like I've been playing with my cousin. Frazier will watch the games. You can have the most, like, somebody will just make multiple misplays, and Frazier's like, well, I mean, yeah, you could have won. Like,
yeah. And I love that. I love watching you guys play GOATs. Like I actually played in GOATs in 2005. I was there, and also, even though I wasn't good then, I became so much like I'm obviously like a really fucking good player. So over the years, when I go back and look at like you guys playing GOATs, I see like all of the right plays and stuff that you can do. And it's really like, I don't know. I love watching people play the game still. Like that part of me has not, like, even though I don't like playing myself, I enjoy watching other people play. I don't really watch current Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I just think that it's like a farce. But I do like watching older Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it's slower, because there's actually more decisions being made than simply, does he have Ash Blossom? Does he have Gamma? These are like hand traps. That's essentially what turn, like every turn one is like, I have combo, but can my combo deal with whatever is in his hand? Because if my combo resolves, he realistically cannot play the game. I don't like that shit. So old school Yu-Gi-Oh! Where it's like really slow.
And by old school, it doesn't just mean GOAT format.
Yeah.
But like we said the other day, there's plenty of great formats after GOAT format.
Yeah. And so like we have Teledad built, we have a bunch of decks built on Dueling Book that are old, and they're a bit slow. Like even Teledad is, it can OTK, but it's not always a fast deck. It kind of sometimes just summons Creebons, sets a backer, and passes, which is like, that's fine. But we really do enjoy the slower pace game. But we're getting off to a tangent.
Yep.
My second bad beat story is, okay, I'm sure there's been many tournaments where I made it to the last round and like lost on the bubble. I feel like at the biggest YCS ever in Long Beach, California, where like Rescue Rabbit was the main deck, and then Dark World won. I feel like I made it all the way to round 12. I think I was on the bubble, round 12, and I lost on the bubble. And that event, because it was the biggest YCS ever, they hadn't planned for it to be 4,000 people. And so round one did not start until the afternoon. Yu-Gi-Oh! Events normally start in the morning. round one, they had to buy an extra room in the convention center. They had to there was a lot of shit that had to happen for that event to actually happen properly. But I say all that to say, we essentially played day one of Swiss like up until past midnight, and then we had to come back and play day two of Swiss really early in the morning, like 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., like something crazy. Like after leaving the convention center at like 1 or 2 a.m. and then having to be back to the convention center at like 7 or 8 a.m. I don't remember the exact time. I remember it was fucking the latest that an event has ever gone into the night and the earliest that an event has ever had to start to like actually have a winner by the end of this. So anyway, I think I made it all the way to the last round and I lost on a bubble, and that shit fucking sucked. Like literally making it 11 rounds, and I believe I was X2 through 11 rounds, and then getting to fucking the 12th round of Swiss, which is like so many rounds, and having played literally like I'm exhausted. Like I didn't get good sleep. I didn't eat good food. We didn't get to go out to a restaurant. Not like I played Yu-Gi-Oh the entire day and I'm exhausted. And to like get all the way there and then lose was like, oh my God, that fucking blows. So that one really fucking sucked. And that wasn't even the one that I really wanted to talk about. I'll give you guys one more because I'm fucking Ellen DeGeneres right now. Yeah, I know,
my
right?
guy.
I'm being fucking Ellen DeGeneres right now. I'm the generous king. So in 2010, the 75th Shonen Jump Championship, or YCS or whatever it's called, I think it was a Shonen Jump because Jeff wins that one. So that was the one where I played the Gear Frame gadget deck, the Machina Gear Frame had just come out, whatever. There was like 8 decks. Like Billy Brigg played Doom Cow Cat, Jeff played Quick Draw, Dandy Warrior, that deck. There were Monarchs was a thing at the time. There were a lot of decks anyway. So I played in that event, and that event is also long as hell. I'm pretty sure that's like, I think it's an 11 round event. Like I feel like that event was 11 rounds. Either way, I go X2 and I get, so the event is top 32 and I get 34th. And again, playing all of those fucking rounds and then like actually having a good record. Like usually if you're X2, you have a really good chance to top the event. Like X2 is a great record in Yu-Gi-Oh! Like, especially if it is 11 rounds. I can't remember if that's actually the fact. I feel like it was though, because it was the 75th and I'm sure it was a huge event. So it probably was 11 rounds. It may have even been 12. I don't remember. However, point is playing that many rounds and then thinking that you topped for the first time, and then not topping at all and being 34th, like you're 2 spots away. Like your tiebreakers just need to be a little bit better. Like your tiebreakers might have needed to win one more round and you would have topped. Just knowing that really sucked. Also, at this time in 2010, I had not topped a major event yet. Like I had topped like 20 regionals at this point. Like no exaggeration. I literally have gone undefeated at like the last 5 or 6 regionals before that event. And I had topped so many up to that event, just throughout Teledad and all the other formats. I just was like one of the best players in Philly. I topped a ton. It was just expected of me that like, this guy is fucking good. He's going to top the regional every time. And I did. But like when it got to the YCS, I hadn't had a success yet. And that's the same year where I win YCS Atlanta. So it's kind of cool when I think about the story. 2010 started off bad because I think that was the first event of 2010. And I won the last event of 2010.
That's fucking dope.
So
that's
like
dope as shit.
Yeah. So like it's actually really cool. Like my redemption arc for 2010 is like you start off getting 34th, which is so close. And then you barely like you get crushed, you don't make it. Really fucking sucks. And then months later, you actually are the last champion of the year. And
it's
honestly,
better. It's better for the story that you didn't win that first one.
Yeah.
It's better, or it didn't top, because the story is that the very first event you topped, first YCS you topped, is the YCS you won.
Yes, and I might not have won.
That's dope.
I might not have won that one. Like it might not have been my day, because I don't think I was, like when I look back at it, I don't think I was realistically going to win that event with gadgets, just because of how absurd Jeff's deck was. I don't think I was going to win that event. Like if at some point I would have played against Jeff and I'm fucking playing gadgets, like I think I would have got blown out. It would have been really hard to win. So yeah, those are like some really crushing defeats for me. And yeah. All right. So let's see if we want to read this next one. Let me see how long it is. This one says Pokemon Draft. Okay, so this one, so we actually will read this next listener letter from Austin because it's really quick. I think we can elaborate on this quick. And Kenny is our Pokemon expert. So he just says, so speaking of competitive Pokemon with Smoggin, we would play a Pokemon draft league using their rules for tier. Everyone would have a team of 12 and you would see the full roster of everyone, but you would have to pick the best 6 to bring with you and the move sets. Huh. So he's not really asking the question. He's just kind of telling you like how he played competitive.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was trying to parse what exactly.
Yeah, there was no, yeah, because like not all of them are questions. Like it's just like, oh, he's just like commenting on what we were talking about in the last episode, which is cool.
No, that's dope. So you're saying I actually used to do something somewhat similar. Not with Pokemon, but there was always kind of that feeling of so with my group of friends that played Pokemon. So this is outside of like tournaments or whatever. Yeah. The group of friends that I played Pokemon with, there was Pokemon that were like, this is my Pokemon. Like, don't fucking, that's mine. Well, you can't use him.
I felt we had the same thing. My group of friends, same thing.
Yeah,
like, there was certain shit that like, that's me. Don't you dare fucking touch that Pokemon because you know that's like one of my favorite. Like for whatever reason, like I used to really love like I like Electric, the element in general, like an anime and everything. So I used to really like Jolteon and Raichu. They may not be the best. I mean, Jolteon was good.
Jolteon was sick in Gen 4, especially.
All right, cool. So I really liked Jolteon, and I really liked Raichu. I thought Raichu just looked fucking cool, like honestly. In the Lieutenant Surge episode, where like Raichu or like Pikachu beat it by like having his tail,
that
like
fat ass Raichu,
fat ass,
like he fucking body slammed the
diesel ass Raichu. I love Raichu because of the show, like typical kid shit, and I love Jolteon. So like my friends didn't use Jolteon or Raichu at all because they knew that like that was my shit.
So yeah, even when we would play each other with competitive teams, like there were certain Pokemon that we were like, oh man, you're using him, like that's not yours. Like my friend Medina hates Feraligatr, but his favorite element is water.
Yeah.
But I really like Feraligatr, and back in early Gen 4, not early Gen 4, I think this was when Heart Gold Soul Silver came out, maybe. But I popularized a Feraligatr set that like was unused, like nobody used it, and then I started using it a lot online, and then I started to see it a lot. And anyway, Medina eventually was like, Feraligator's pretty sick, and then I was like, you're not allowed to use it, get out of here. And I was like, that's my Pokemon. But
do you remember what like the set was with him? Like,
it was I think it was because I think in Heart Gold Soul Silver, I can't remember if he got a new ability or no, he didn't get a new ability. But I'm pretty sure it was I think it was a Dragon Dance substitute set, which is not like crazy innovative, but because people use substitute, like Dragon Dance and substitute, both great moves. But I think in Heart Gold is when he got Dragon Dance. Maybe I didn't use sub. I can't remember exactly, but I think he got Dragon Dance in Heart Gold. And basically, Feraligatr was always seen as a bad Pokemon. And at the start of Heart Gold, nobody was using him when the Heart Gold format like kind of started. Because all the Pokemon, it's still Gen 4, so it's still like the same rules, but a lot of Pokemon get a bunch of new moves.
Yeah.
So like in Pokemon Platinum is when Scizor got Bullet Punch. That's when Scizor became Scizor, really. Before Platinum and Diamond and Pearl, he wasn't really played. So anyway, I started Feraligatr. The set was never like super OU top tier, but
but
the set that I made with him ended up becoming pretty popular, and like nobody was using it, and then I was using it a lot and getting a lot of wins, and like people, I remember commenting on it and saying like, wow, like when you fucking like people saying that when they saw it Feraligatr, then thinking like this is easy. And like not expecting
this guy's a scrub.
Yeah. So anyway, but I'm pretty sure it was just like a Dragon Dance set. I think it was one of those things that's kind of like Dragon Dance isn't innovative, but it's like nobody even looked at Feraligatr.
Right.
Whereas I did. Anyway. But yeah, even in fighting games, like you'll have like a draft, like reuse my character. In Street Fighter, I use Balrog. But so I resonate with that. In Budokai 3, Dragon Ball Z Budokai 3, I remember me and a couple of my friends, we literally did draft the roster of the game. And we like drafted the roster, like we went through pick, and like I picked Broly, for example, and nobody else was allowed to use Broly.
Oh, that's cool.
And afterwards, we like traded. We're like, I'll trade you like Fat Boo for Teen Gohan or whatever.
Oh, that's cool as shit.
So yeah, that was sick.
Yeah. So he says he picks 12. They each have 12, and they can choose their best 6, which I like that idea, because you don't know the team that I'm going to have. You just know what I could have, which is so there's still some guessing.
Yep. I do like that.
And some of it might be obvious. Like if there's a Garchomp, like obviously you're going to fucking play your Garchomp, but you can't guess my 6 technically. Like you would have to. I think it'd be cool
if they did that in real Pokemon. Like if there was a rule, like if you and me are playing on the fucking games on the DS, I mean, it's not DS anymore, and it's like you pick, and it's like I want to do a 2 out of 3, and like you get a lot at 12 Pokemon.
Yeah.
So if they wanted to team preview, you see my 12, it's like all right, cool, but I can still pick out of these 12 with 6 I'm using. That'd be sick.
Yeah, I would like that. All right. Well, this wraps up our episode 6, actually, of the IMNerd podcast. And we hope that you enjoyed this one, mostly about Game of Thrones. We'll be back real soon. Every episode drops Monday and Thursday. So if you want us to read anything on the show, or if you have any questions, please send them to imnerdpodcast@gmail.com, and we may read it aloud on the show. But yeah, thank you guys for rocking with us. Thank you for all the people who support us and listen to us. We're over 500 downloads, and that doesn't count.
Yes.
That doesn't even count like SoundCloud or YouTube. So just between Spotify and Apple and I guess Google Podcasts, stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just between those, we're over 500 and something downloads, which I posted recently. So I'm really happy that the podcast is growing, that you guys are actually listening to it. And
thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. If you're sharing,
yes, please. Yeah, like it's
amazing.
We really appreciate like anyone who listens, anyone who shares a link, anyone who tells their friends about it. We're going to talk about so much different nerd shit, and that's the point of this podcast. Like every episode, theoretically, is going to be different, and we're going to revisit stuff. We're going to come back to Game of Thrones several times. We're going to go again, Naruto, Bleach, One Piece, Yu Hakusho. Like we're going to go through so much shit. So if you guys like this, then spread the word. Follow us subscribe on YouTube, subscribe on Spotify, and all that stuff. Whatever the content creators usually say, all of that shit. So subscribe.
Just pretend we just had like a really good shill speech.
Yes, exactly. Yep, really good shill speech. Insert here, and if you guys really rock with us, then we don't hate the fact that you want to show some support
with you.
All right. Well, anyway, as we always say, so long, Gay Bowser.
So long, Gay Bowser.